As You Like It. As found in Stories from Shakespeare by Jeanie Lang, a work now in the public domain, originally published by T.C. and E.C. Jack, London, 1905. In France, long years ago, there lived two girls who were the very best of friends. They were cousins, and both were beautiful. The taller and stronger of them was called Rosalind, and the name of the other was Celia. Rosalind's father was a great duke, but his brother, Celia's father, stole all his lands away from him and drove him out of his own dukedom. Many powerful nobles, who hated the wicked brother but loved Rosalind's father, went with him, and they made a court of their own far away, under the greenwood tree, in the forest of Arden. When Rosalind's father was driven from his castle, her uncle kept her there to be a companion to his own little girl, Celia. They grew up together, and Celia was so sweet and so kind to Rosalind that Rosalind sometimes forgot to be sad because her father was banished, and to be angry with her uncle for having been so cruel. One of the truest friends of the banished duke had been a brave knight called Sir Roland de Bois. He was dead, but had left 3 sons. Oliver, the eldest, was not a good brother. Instead of doing as his father had wished, and being kind to his youngest brother, whose name was Orlando, he gave him no money, nor any chance of learning anything, and made him take all his meals with the servants. He was jealous of Orlando, and hated him because he was so brave and strong and handsome, and he was kinder to his own horses than he was to him. Sir Roland de Bois had an old servant named Adam. He had served Sir Roland very faithfully, and he loved Orlando, and was very sad at Oliver's cruelty to his young brother. One day, when Orlando felt that he could not bear Oliver's ill-treatment any longer, he asked him to give him the money that his father had left to him, and let him go and seek his fortune. He could not bear, he said, to go on leading an idle life, doing nothing and learning nothing. But Oliver only mocked at him, and so the brothers had a quarrel. When Adam tried to make them friends, for the sake of their dead father, Oliver was angry with the old servant and told him to get away. "Get away, you old dog," said he. "You call me an old dog," said Adam. "Truly, I have lost my teeth in your service. My old master would not have spoken such cruel words to me." Oliver hated Orlando more than ever after this quarrel. He planned what was the best way to kill him, and to keep for himself the money that their father had left Orlando. About this time, the false duke, Celia's father, gave a great wrestling match. He had a very strong, paid wrestler of his own. This man wrestled so well that only the bravest dared to wrestle with him, and he often killed those with whom he wrestled. Orlando was a very good wrestler and was afraid of no one, so he made up his mind to go to the match and wrestle with this man. When Oliver knew that Orlando was going to do this, he sent for the duke's wrestler to come to his castle to see him. He told the wrestler all sorts of wicked lies about Orlando. He was, he said, one of the worst young men in France, and in every way was so bad that the wrestler would be doing a good deed if he broke his neck. The wrestler promised to do his best to kill Orlando. "If he can walk by himself when I have wrestled with him, I shall never wrestle any more," he said. Next day, the wrestling match took place on the lawn in front of the duke's castle. The duke and all his lords came to see the sport, and Celia and Rosalind also came. For in those long-ago days, it was the custom for gentle ladies to look on at things that now seem to us very rough and very cruel. Just before Celia and Rosalind arrived, the duke's wrestler had done a dreadful deed. An old man had come to the match that his 3 handsome young sons might wrestle with the famous wrestler. One after the other they had wrestled, and one after the other they had been thrown to the ground with their ribs crushed in. They were so badly hurt that their poor old father was sure that they were going to die, and cried over them so mournfully that some of those who heard him could not help crying too. Everyone said after this that it would be foolish for anyone else to try to wrestle with a man as strong as this wrestler of the Duke's, and only one man offered to try. This man was Orlando de Bois. When he came forward, he looked so slim and young and brave and handsome that even the wicked Duke, who did not know who he was sorry to think of the wrestler crushing his life out. "Try to persuade the lad not to wrestle," said the Duke to Celia and Rosalind. "He has no chance at all. My man is sure to kill him." Very kindly and very gently, Celia and Rosalind begged Orlando not to think of going on with the match. "You have seen a cruel proof of this man's strength," said Celia. "If you could see yourself with your own eyes, you would not run into the danger of such a fight. We pray you, for your own sake, to give it up." "Do give it up," said Rosalind. "No one will think you a coward for doing it, for we shall ask the Duke to stop the wrestling." But Orlando answered, "Do not think badly of me for refusing to do what you wish. It is not easy to say no to ladies who are so kind and so fair. Let your beautiful eyes and gentle wishes go with me to my trial. If I am killed, I have none to be sorry, and the empty place I leave may be better filled by another man." "I wish I could give you the little strength I have," said Celia. And Rosalind said, "And mine too, to help out hers." "I wish I were invisible, that I might catch that strong fellow by the leg and trip him up as he's wrestling with you," said little Celia. Then the wrestling began, and everyone watched to see the Duke's wrestler kill Orlando. But instead of Orlando being killed by the wrestler, he lifted the strong man in his arms and threw him on the ground. All the people shouted in amazement, and the Duke called out, "No more! No more! I beg your grace, let us go on," said Orlando. "We have scarcely begun." The Duke turned to his own wrestler and asked him how he was. But the man lay quite still and quiet, and could not speak nor move. "He cannot speak, my lord," said one of the nobles. So the Duke had him carried away. "What is thy name, young man?" he asked of Orlando. "Orlando, my lord, the youngest son of Sir Roland de Bois." "Your father was my enemy," said the Duke. "I would have been better pleased with your brave deed if you had told me of another father," said Orlando, "and I would not change my place to be the Duke's adopted heir." Then the Duke and his lords and his servants went away, and Orlando was left alone with Rosalind and Celia. Celia could not bear that her father should have spoken so sternly to Orlando. "Were I my father, cousin, would I do this?" she asked of Rosalind. Then fair Rosalind spoke. "My father loved Sir Roland as his own soul," she said to Celia, "and all the world knew how noble Sir Roland was. Had I known that this young man was Sir Roland's son, I should have begged him with tears not to run into so great a danger." "Let us go and speak to Orlando," said the gentle Celia. "I am ashamed of my father's unkind words." Then she and Rosalind went up to Orlando and praised him for his bravery, and Rosalind, taking a gold chain off her own neck, gave it to him. She would have given him a richer gift, she said, had she not been only a poor girl. Orlando loved them both for their goodness, but Rosalind he loved so much that he made up his mind to marry her one day, if she would marry him. Meantime, the false Duke was angry with Orlando, the son of his enemy, for having defeated his wrestler, and he was angry with Rosalind for having given Orlando her gold chain. The more the false Duke thought of those things, the angrier he grew. One of his courtiers was a kind man, so he told Orlando that the sooner he went away, the better it would be for him, as the Duke meant to do him harm. The Duke himself roughly told Rosalind to leave his castle. "If you are found even 20 miles from here within the next 10 days, you shall die," he said. Celia was very sad at her father's cruelty to Rosalind, who was so dear to her. She begged the Duke not to be so unjust, but he would not listen to her. Then she told him that if he sent Rosalind away, he must send her away too, because she could not live without Rosalind. "You are a fool," said her father, and the more angrily told Rosalind that he would have her killed if she did not go at once. But Celia would not part from Rosalind, so they made up their minds to travel together to the Forest of Arden, where Rosalind's father and his friends were hiding. They knew they might meet with robbers on the way, so Celia stained her face to make it look sunburned and dressed herself like a poor country girl not worth robbing. Rosalind put on boy's clothes and took a little axe and a spear with her. Now, the Duke, Celia's father, had a jester called Touchstone. This jester was a very funny fellow who was always talking nonsense and cracking jokes, and he loved his young mistress Celia very dearly. "What if we took Touchstone with us?" said Rosalind when they were dressed and ready to start. "Would he not be a comfort to us?" "He would go all over the wide world with me," said Celia. "Let me ask him to come." So when Rosalind and Celia went off to the forest, kind Touchstone led the way. In his red clothes, with the bells on his cap jangling and the peas in his air balloon rattling, he gaily stepped out in front of them, carrying their bundle of food and clothes. And when night fell and the forest was dark, and Rosalind and Celia grew weary and sad, Touchstone's merry face and the jokes he made soon cheered the two tired girls up again. While these things were happening, Orlando's brother had been planning how to kill Orlando. He was so jealous that he hated him all the more when he heard people praising him for having so bravely defeated the wrestler. He made up his mind to set fire to his room and burn him to death, or if he escaped, to murder him in some other way. Adam, the old servant, overheard those wicked plots and warned Orlando. Orlando decided to go to the Forest of Arden, and Adam said he would come too. Orlando had no money, but Adam said he must take all his savings, and so they too went off to the forest. Far away in the leafy woods, Rosalind's father and his friends were very happy together. They hunted the deer and had plenty of good food, and they sang merry songs as they rested under the shade of the thick green trees. Here is one of the songs they sang. "Under the greenwood tree, who loves to lie with me, and turn his merry note unto the sweet bird's throat, come hither, come hither, come hither. Here shall he see no enemy, but winter and rough weather." As they feasted together one day, a young man rushed out from amongst the trees, his drawn sword in his hand. "Forbear, and eat no more," he cried. The Duke and his friends asked him what he wanted. "Food," he said. "I am almost dying for want." They asked him to sit down and eat, but he would not, for an old man who had followed him out of pure love was in the wood dying of hunger, he said, and he could eat nothing until he had first fed him. The young man was Orlando, and when the good Duke and his followers had helped him to bring Adam to where they were, and had tended them and fed them both, the old man and his master grew quite strong again. When the Duke knew that Orlando was a son of his friend Sir Roland de Bois, he welcomed him and the faithful old servant more warmly still. So Orlando lived happily with the Duke and his friends in the depths of the forest, but all the time he was thinking of Rosalind. Every day he would write verses about her, and pin them on trees in the wood or carve them deep in the bark. He could think of no one but her. He loved her so much. Now Rosalind and Celia and Touchstone had also come safely to the forest, and had hired a little cottage that belonged to a shepherd there. Rosalind loved Orlando as much as he loved her, and when she read the verses Orlando left on the trees, her heart was glad, for she knew he had not forgotten her. At last one day, she and Celia met Orlando. But he did not know them in the dress they wore and with their stained brown faces, and took them for the shepherd boy and his sister that they pretended to be. He made great friends with them and would often come to see them in their little cottage and talk to them of Rosalind, the beautiful lady that he loved. Meantime, Orlando's brother had been well punished for his wickedness. When Orlando went away, the false duke, Celia's father, thought that Oliver must have killed him. He took Oliver's lands away from him and told him never to dare to come back to his court until he had found Orlando. So Oliver wandered away alone to look for his brother. He sought him week after week in vain, until his clothes were in rags and his hair so long and rough that he looked like a beggar. On his way from Rosalind's cottage, Orlando came on him one day, lying fast asleep under an old oak. Round his neck a big snake had curled itself and was just going to bite him and kill him when it saw Orlando and glided away. Even as it went away, Orlando saw another dreadful danger near his unkind brother. A hungry lion was crouching under some bushes, ready to kill the sleeping man. For a moment Orlando thought only of his brother's cruelties, and that he well deserved that the lion should spring on him and tear him in pieces. Twice he turned away to leave him, but he had too generous a heart to do so cruel a thing, even to his enemy. He fought the lion and slew it, but not before it had torn his arm with its fierce, sharp teeth. The noise of the fight awoke Oliver, who saw that Orlando was risking his own life to save him. Full of shame at his wickedness to Orlando and Orlando's goodness to him, he told his brother how sorry he was and begged his pardon, and they became friends. Orlando took his brother to the Duke and had him fed and clothed, and said nothing of his wound. But all the while it had been bleeding, and suddenly he fell to the ground and fainted from loss of blood. When Rosalind heard of Orlando's wound and saw a handkerchief stained with his blood, she too fainted, and those who saw her and thought she was a boy laughed at her for being so womanish. But soon Rosalind told them her secret. "To you I give myself, for I am yours," she said to the Duke, her father. Then, turning to Orlando, "To you I give myself, for I am yours," she said. Then the Duke knew that Rosalind was his daughter, and Orlando knew that the shepherd boy was his own fair Rosalind, and there were no other men in all France as happy as were the Duke and Orlando de Bois. Rosalind and Orlando were married at once, with leafy trees for a church and singing birds for choristers, and on the same day, Oliver, who was truly sorry for the bad deeds he had done, was married to Celia. A messenger came to the Duke to say that his brother, Celia's father, the false Duke, had repented. He had given up his dukedom, and so the good Duke had his own again. So they all had happy hearts that day under the greenwood tree. The end.